Sigismund Consultants, Inc. I bet you didn't know that from the time this program started a moment ago to the time it ends, 500 new babies will be welcomed worldwide. And by the end of the news that follows this program, that figure will increase to approximately 7,500. That's right. Every second we welcome 4 new babies into our overall population. That means there are approximately 250 births each minute, 15,000 each hour, and 360,000 each day. While 4 babies are born on Earth every second, it's estimated that around 2 people pass away at the same time. That means that 105 people die each minute, 6,316 people die each hour, and 151,600 people die each day, and 55.3 million people die each year. According to the Population Reference Bureau, since the time Homo sapiens first hit the scene 50,000 years ago, more than 108 billion members of our species have been born, and a large chunk of that number is alive right now. According to the Bureau, the number of people alive today represents a whopping 7% of the total number of humans who have ever lived. There are only 2 countries with names that begin with the. You might find yourself saying the United States or the Maldives. However, only the Gambia and the Bahamas formally include the in their names. See you next time on Bet You Didn't Know. Compliments of Sigismund Consultants, Inc.
Drink Pepsi Black for max taste, no sugar. Pepsi Black time, 18 hours.
The news from Guyana, the region and the world. Compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
The news comes to you compliments of KFC. It's finger licking good. With the news, I am Ruth Wilson. Good evening. First, the highlights. The Public Accounts Committee that scrutinizes government spending heard that staff shortages resulted in breaches at the ministry's drug storage bond. A doctor was last night killed at his medical clinic in Kingston, Georgetown. The Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, is reporting a decline in COVID cases across the Americas and the Caribbean as more people are vaccinated. The ex-husband of a Wisma Linden businesswoman has been arrested for attempting to take her life Tuesday night at her business place. The former head of the Special Organized Crime Unit SOCU, Sidney James, is wanted by the police. In the region, the CCJ for 2 consecutive days heard submissions in the Belize Common External Tariff case brought against Trinidad and Tobago. St. Martin's Constitutional Court on Monday turned down requests filed by the Ombudsman on April 26 to quash 3 national ordinances in connection with cuts to the employment benefits of civil servants, semi-public sector workers, and political authorities. And internationally, on Sunday, Abiy Ahmed called on citizens to take up arms to block the advance of the rebel Tigray People's Liberation Front and bury those killed. Details of these and other stories in a moment.
After a hard day's work, delicious comfort food is all we crave for. There at KFC, they've got you covered with a wide choice of delicious, finger-licking good meals from any of their 9 locations, including the Amazonia Mall at Providence. And there are 6 drive-through locations for your convenience. Their 11 herbs and spices are sure to blow those post-work vibes away every time. It's the perfect way to end a hard day. KFC.
It's finger licking good.
And now for the news in detail. The Bipartisan Public Accounts Committee, PAC, of the National Assembly that scrutinizes government spending has heard that staff shortages have resulted in breaches at the ministry's drug shortage bond. The former Permanent Secretary, PS, Trevor Thomas, was called upon to produce proof that he requested staff. The Auditor General's report on the Ministry Materials Management Department identified breaches of poorly kept records and in other cases, no updated bin cards to log specific drugs and poor inventory of stock leaving and entering the bond. Government member of the PAC 1 Edgel sought to ascertain the reasons for the breaches, which continued from prior to 2017.
Why weren't staff employed to ensure that these sightings didn't reoccur when commitments were made to PAC that they would be remedied? What happened in 2016 that prevented staff, especially in light of the fact that in 2016, this issue was a big issue about stock levels, inventories, bin cards. We went through the full 9 yards in that discussion, Mr. Chair. You will recall.
The former PS, Trevor Thomas, who is being cited for the breaches and is still employed at the Health Ministry, told the PAC that updating records is an ongoing challenge.
Requests for filling of positions were made. There are two things. One, you can get permission to fill a position, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you will get the staff to fill the position, especially if it's at a lower level. Filling positions in feed audit department has always been a challenge. High attrition rates and so on. More persons opt at the clerical level to work in accounts or parcel or so on. And this is no attempt to make an excuse. I think this is important, but it has been an ongoing challenge to update inventories and have staff to do it. But requests have been made to fill positions from time to time.
The PAC has given Mr. Thomas 1 week to produce evidence of those requests before he is no longer cited for those breaches.
The former PS is indicating basically that he was unable to carry out his functions under Section 39 of the Stores Regulations of 1993 because he did not have adequate staff.
Yes, is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you are being cited for a breach because you didn't have the staff to help you to carry out your function.
Correct.
Could you provide PAC with evidence by way of letter where you wrote for the filling of these vacancies and responses as it relates? Because as it is right now, you're in the hot seat because you couldn't do your work as a PS and we had breaches, we had excesses, we had shortages.
The APNU-AFC administration in 2017 had been forced to sole source millions of dollars in emergency medical drugs when it had discovered that critical drugs had been in short supply for the country's hospitals and health centers. A well-known city doctor was found dead at his medical clinic on Duke Street, Kingston, and 2 men have since been arrested. He is 49-year-old Colin Roach of Windsor Estates, East Bank, Demerara. Police say 2 employees of his international medical clinic on Duke Street, Kingston, have since been arrested. Dr. Roach was a former chairman of the National Sports Commission. The 2 men who work with the doctor told police that the clinic opened for business between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. They say that after the clinic was closed, one of them went out while the other retired to his living quarters in the top flat, leaving the doctor in his office in the middle flat. Investigators were also informed that about 8 p.m., a male was seen exiting who returned about 7 minutes later and re-entered the clinic. At about 8 hours 18 or 20 hours 18 rather, the vehicle belonging to the doctor drove out of Duke Street heading north. One of the employees told police that he observed that the lights in the doctor's office were still on, and this prompted one of the employees to call the doctor on his cell phone, but he got no answer. Police were told that the other employee was alerted, and using their office keys, he went to turn off the said lights. It was then that he reportedly discovered the doctor lying motionless on his back in a pool of blood in the examination area. Police were summoned, and a wound that appears to be a lash was seen on the left side of his forehead. The Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, is reporting a decline in COVID cases across the Americas and the Caribbean as more people are vaccinated. Assistant Director of PAHO, Dr. Jarbos Barbosa, says while reported cases of new infections continue, there has been a significant decline across all regions.
Over the last week, the region of the Americas reported more than 745,020 new cases, new COVID-19 infections, and just over 18,000 COVID-related deaths. This is the 8th consecutive week that overall cases have declined in the region. In North America, all 3 countries reported drops in weekly cases and deaths, and there has been a notable decline in hospitalizations in the United States and Canada. There have been similar declines across most countries in Central America. After weeks of a persistent outbreak in Belize, I am pleased to report a nearly 20% decrease in cases and a 60% decrease in deaths.
New infections and deaths reported from all regions are related to those persons being unvaccinated. Dr. Barbosa says except for 3 Caribbean states experiencing a surge, generally COVID deaths have leveled and countries should persist with their vaccination efforts.
So right now we have over the last 24 hours, we would have seen at least 1 death. Again, with a decrease in hospitalization for severe cases, we are also noticing that the death rates are going down. And so that's also a very important sign. The mortality rate right now, it's 12.2.
We do apologize for that insert. Here is the correct insert of the story.
Every high percentage of those hospitalized have not been immunized against the virus. Consistent with the other parts of the region, cases and deaths are trending downwards or remaining stable throughout much of the Caribbean. However, Barbados continues to report its highest number of COVID-related infections and deaths since the start of the pandemic, and there are concerning shortages of hospital capacity in the Dominican Republic and Trinidad and Tobago. The progress in our region is not a reason to become complacent or discontinue the public health measures that help keep us safe. Quite the opposite. The decline in cases and deaths shows that our approach is working, and it is critical for all of us to stay the course until everyone is vaccinated and protected from the virus.
The PAHO Assistant Director says most of the countries in the Americas and the Caribbean are on target with the PAHO vaccination goals. The COVID death toll has moved upward to 928 with the deaths of 2 elderly persons. They are an 83-year-old man who was fully vaccinated and an 80-year-old woman who was not vaccinated. The Health Ministry says it has recorded 81 new COVID infections in the last 24 hours. The number of active cases now stands at 2,520. Of that number, 2,455 who tested positive are instructed to isolate themselves at home, while another 47 are hospitalized, being treated, and 18 persons are receiving care in the COVID intensive care unit. The ministry says Guyana now has 247,822 adults and 18,521 children between the age of 12 to 17 years old who are fully vaccinated. There are 383,943 adults and 27,587 children of the 12 to 17 age group that are partially vaccinated. The ex-husband of a Wisma Linden businesswoman has been arrested for attempting to take her life Tuesday night at her business place. Investigators relate that the assailant first threatened the woman to kill her and her male friend around 5 p.m. yesterday. The man returned around 7:30 p.m. armed with a gun and entered the shop that the 36-year-old woman operates. He allegedly fired at her, hitting her in the abdomen. He then escaped the scene of the shooting. The woman managed to make a phone call to her church members, who took her to the Linden Hospital complex, where she was admitted and remains a patient. Police subsequently arrested the suspect at Canvas City, and he was taken to the Mackenzie police station, where he was told of the allegation and cautioned. He opted to remain silent. He was placed in custody pending investigations. The former head of the Special Organized Crime Unit, SOCU, Sidney James, is wanted by the police. The wanted bulletin by the police states that the former Deputy Commissioner of Police is wanted for a series of reports of obtaining money by false pretense and fraud. The former head of SOCU was instrumental in the unit investigating Barajagdio, now Vice President, Irfan Ali, now President, and former senior officials of the National Industrial and Commercial Investments Limited. 20-year-old Monique Caesar of Cummings Park, Sophia, who was yesterday busted with marijuana in blue soap at the Lusignan prison, has been charged. Ms. Caesar appeared at the Vigilance Magistrates Court before Magistrate Fabio Azor and pleaded guilty to 2 charges read by the magistrate. The magistrate imposed a $13,200 fine with 6 months community service for the narcotics charge and a $26,000 fine or 1 month imprisonment for the place prohibited article charge. You're still with us on News Talk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM. It's 18 hours 14. We now turn to news in the region. Belize has accused Trinidad and Tobago of failing to apply the Common External Tariff (CET) tax on brown sugar imported from outside the region from November 2018 to June 2020. Over 2 days, the Caribbean Court of Justice (CCJ) is hearing a complaint by Belize claiming Trinidad and Tobago breached the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas by failing to apply the CET of 40% on imports of brown sugar from Guatemala and Honduras. The Central American country has alleged that because of the treaty violation, Belize Sugar Industries Limited, BSI, and Santander Sugar were losing sales to these countries. It was also alleged that the CARICOM Secretariat had failed to ensure Trinidad and Tobago imposed the CET. Belize is seeking a ruling from the CCJ that requires the full application of the 40% CET on brown sugar imported from non-CARICOM sources. In its lawsuit, Belize contended it had evidence to demonstrate that between November 2018 and June 2020, brown sugar produced outside the Caribbean region entered the market without the CET being imposed. On Tuesday, 3 of that country's witnesses were grilled by the attorney representing the government. Those questions were Andy Sutherland, Acting Director General in the Directorate General for Foreign Trade of Belize, and 2 executives from the ASR Group, the world's largest refiner and marketer of cane sugar, Ry Martinez and Mac McLaughlin. The CET is a single tariff rate agreed to by all members of CARICOM on imports of a product from outside the Caribbean community. Goods imported from third countries are subjected to the duties listed in the CET, but goods imported from CARICOM countries certified to be of CARICOM origin do not generally attract these import duties. They enjoy duty-free status. The matter has been adjourned to Wednesday, when attorneys for Belize and the TT government will advance their submissions. Presiding over the matter are CCJ President Justice Adrian Saunders and Justices Jacob Witt, Winston Anderson, Maureen Rajnath Lee, Dennis Barrow, Andrew Burgess, and Peter Jamadar. The Antiguan Observer News has reported that ties between Antigua and Barbuda and the United Arab Emirates, UAE, have been strengthened as the Twin Islands sets up office in the Middle Eastern country, which now provides opportunities for trade and tourism. Antigua and Barbuda's Ambassador Gilbert Bostani, now resident ambassador, says the Caribbean country is setting up an embassy in the UAE and a trade office in Dubai to facilitate collaboration between the 2 states. Ambassador Baustani says the government's focus will be placed on integrating youth as a means of securing the future. The ambassador says that the future is poised to be successful given the similarities between both territories and the ambitions of Antigua and Barbuda to be a dominant force in the Caribbean. Ambassador Baustani is part of Antigua and Barbuda's delegation to Expo 2020 Dubai, which is seeking to promote the country's culture and secure investment to improve its economic conditions. St. Martin's Constitutional Court has turned down requests filed by the Ombudsman to quash 3 national ordinances for cuts in employment benefits of government workers and political authorities. The 3 contested national ordinances were issued by the government of St. Martin on July 1, 2020, to meet the conditions set by the Dutch government to receive liquidity support. The 3 ordinances have amended the terms of employment of political authorities, standardized the top incomes, and adjusted the employment conditions at semi-public sector entities. The Daily Herald reports that the Ombudsman on the grounds that they violated the Constitution. Attorney-at-law Jason Rogers for the Ombudsman called on the Constitutional Court to quash all or part of the 3 national ordinances. In its 30-page judgment, the Constitutional Court said the living conditions for many have deteriorated in a way that would normally not be acceptable. The court stated in its ruling that no government would like to take such measures, but the government and the Parliament of St. Martin needed a lot of money that was not available. The court ruled that the money could only be borrowed from the Netherlands under certain conditions. The Barbados opposition leader, Bishop Joseph Atherley, is crying shame on the lack of provision made for his office. Atherley made his displeasure known to lawmakers on the government side as they met to approve over $95.9 million from the Consolidated Fund to supplement the 2021-2022 estimates. Atherley, who broke away from the governing Barbados Labour Party shortly after the general election in May of 2018 to form his opposition party, says he was convinced only lip service is given to his office. He lamented the absence of adequate staff while insisting that the Parliament should financially support the office of the opposition with costs for retaining legal fees in certain circumstances. He was addressing lawmakers in Parliament on Tuesday as the Standing Finance Committee on Supplementary Estimates discussed the almost $48 million earmarked for various government ministries. Atherley says his office had made a formal request of the Management Commission of Parliament for a research officer, but more than a year later, the matter had not been addressed, leaving him to do all the necessary research himself. Levels of the office suggest personnel and allowance for some staff. It is 18 hours at 21. We now go to the BBC World Service for international news.
I'm Stuart McIntosh with the BBC News. Hello. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has pledged to bury what he described as the enemy with the blood and bones of his forces. He was speaking at an event marking the first anniversary of the war in Tigray. Anne Soy has more details.
Abiy Ahmed continues to strike a defiant note. The Prime Minister promised a swift victory, but 12 months later, the rebels are now seriously threatening the capital. Today, Mr. Ahmed assured the population that Ethiopia will win and prosper, and he reiterated calls for civilians to support the federal forces. The TPLF are now said to be heading to Milletown, from where they could control the highway connecting neighboring Djibouti to Addis Ababa, a key supply route. The group says it wants to end a blockade of aid it accuses the federal government of imposing.
The United States has blacklisted the NSO Group, the Israeli company producing surveillance software which has allegedly been used by governments to hack into the phones of political rivals, journalists and others. The US Commerce Department said that the Pegasus spyware had enabled foreign governments to conduct transitional repression. Frank Gardner reports.
The Pegasus spyware, developed by former Israeli military cyber experts, is one of the most intrusive and powerful surveillance tools in existence. It's been sold to governments, notably in the Middle East, under strict guidelines, say NSO, to target terrorists and criminals. Once a phone is infected with it, the user can remotely read all their text messages, access their data, their contacts, even turn on the microphone to eavesdrop on conversations. The NSO group has admitted that it has cancelled contracts where its software has been misused, but says it is appalled by the US blacklisting and it intends to appeal the decision.
The United States has added the alleged leader of the notorious MS-13 gang in Honduras to the FBI's list of 10 most wanted fugitives. Julian Adonai Archaga Carias faces numerous federal charges in New York. Here's Kat Wiener.
Honduran-born Archaga Carias, who also goes by the name of Alexander Mendoza, is known in the criminal world as El Porky. According to the FBI, he controls the MS-13's Honduran operation, which provides offshoots in Central America and the US with firearms, narcotics and cash, and he is believed to have participated in the murder of rival gang members. Last year, Archaga Carias was freed from custody in Honduras after at least 20 heavily armed men dressed in military fatigues stormed the court where he was being tried.
Talks aimed at reviving the 2015 nuclear deal between Iran and 6 other nations are to resume this month. Iran's chief negotiator said his government had agreed to a conference in the Austrian capital, Vienna. The deal was hit hard when the former US President Donald Trump abandoned it in 2018. World news from the BBC. MPs in Britain have narrowly voted to overhaul Parliament's disciplinary process, preventing the suspension of a former government minister. Owen Paterson of the governing Conservative Party faced immediate sanction for repeatedly breaking lobbying rules, which he denies. But in an unprecedented move, the Conservative Party ordered its MPs not to back the call for a 6-week ban. In a new report, the United States says that China is expanding its nuclear arsenal much more quickly than previously estimated. The Pentagon report says that Beijing could have 700 warheads by 2027 and possibly 1,000 by the end of the decade. This year's Booker Prize for the best novel published in English has been awarded to The Promise by the South African author Damon Galgut. It explores recent South African history through the wish of a white woman to leave her house to her black maid. Mr. Galgut had been shortlisted for the Booker Prize twice before for previous novels. He said he was stunned to receive this year's award.
It's taken a long while to get here, and now that I have, I kind of feel that I shouldn't be here. This has been a great year for African writing, and I'd like to accept this on behalf of all the stories told and untold, the writers heard and unheard from the remarkable continent that I'm part of.
Scientists believe they've found out why people are growing taller and reaching puberty earlier than before. The research published in the journal Nature says there's a sensor in the brain located in the hypothalamus that provides the crucial link between food, sexual development and adolescent growth. When the sensor doesn't work normally, the study found that people tended to be shorter in height and started puberty later than other people, even if they had the same diet. The researchers say their discovery could lead to drugs being developed to improve muscle mass and treat delayed growth. Well, that is the BBC News.
And that's the news to the moment.
KFC cares about you. Have your favorite chicken delivered from a branch near you by ordering online from their Facebook page at KFCGY. That's KFCGY. Remember, their current delivery hours are 9:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Enjoy tasty KFC in the comfort of your home or office. KFC.
It's finger licking good.
To end the news, here's a recap of the highlights. The Public Accounts Committee that scrutinizes government spending heard that staff shortages resulted in breaches of the ministry's drug shortage bond. A doctor was last night killed at his medical clinic in Kingston, Georgetown. The Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, is reporting a decline in COVID cases across the Americas and the Caribbean as more people are vaccinated. The ex-husband of a Wisma Linden businesswoman has been arrested for attempting to take her life Tuesday night at her business place. The former head of the Special Organized Crime Unit, SOCU, Sidney James, is wanted by the police. In the region, The CCJ for 2 consecutive days heard submissions in the Belize Common External Tariff case brought against Trinidad and Tobago. And St. Martin's Constitutional Court on Monday turned down requests filed by the Ombudsman on April 26 to quash 3 national ordinances in connection with cuts to the employment benefits of civil servants, semi-public sector workers, and political authorities. And internationally, on Sunday, Abiy Ahmed called on citizens to take up arms to block the advance of the rebel Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, and bury those killed. That's the end of the news, which came to you with the compliments of KFC. It's finger-licking good.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.